Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the call. I'm Brad Sugars, the Chairman and CEO at Action Coach, and looking forward to teaching you about systems today. If you haven't had the chance ever, please make sure that you check out our bradsugars.tv or bradsugars.com and make sure you learn as much as you can there as well. We have plenty of free stuff for you to learn from, so as much as you want to get, you will get out of this. And also ActionCOACH.com, there's plenty of information. So systems can be perceived as the most exciting part of a business, or as most people see it, exactly the opposite. In fact, most people don't see systems as an exciting part of business at all. The reality is, though, if you're the owner of the business and you realize that there's a methodology or a way of freeing your time up so that you don't have to work in the business anymore, you'll get kind of excited about systems. So how do you build a business that works so that you don't have to is essentially the point. Well, I have a 9-step process to doing that. And it's interesting when I sit down and chat with people about basically even the first 7 steps of the 9 steps, they're not really sure why you would do those and how come they're important in it. But the reality is putting systems in place or documenting how to do things means nothing if we don't put in place the right attitude, the right methodologies, the right goals and the right vision as to where the company should be going in order to do that. So if we want to get a business to work without us, we've got to have a bunch of people that will actually do the job. And very simply put, getting people to do it for you is not just about systems. Systems is a major part of it. It's kind of like an 80-20 rule, I guess. 80% can be systemized, but 20% is still got to be down to your people and the quality of the people you hire and the quality of the training you deliver to them. So keep that in mind. Hang around at the end of the day today. Eve, I know, and my team will have for you 4 free gifts. They're yours free of charge just for hanging out with us for the hour to learn how to get your business to the next stage. So I wrote the book Instant Systems now, got to be 8-9 years ago now, and it's been a great seller. It's been across the world, and the reason why is it's practical and how to do things, and that's really what today's webinar is all about. So why are you here? Well, I'm pretty sure you're here for one of these reasons. In fact, some of you are here for multiple of these reasons. When we sit down and look at it, why people attend my seminars, or in this case, webinars, I find that their answers are pretty much straight the same, because business owners know what they're looking for. They know what they're aiming to achieve, and so they go and hunt that down. Systems, very important project, very important even subject for a business. But as a project for a company to develop the system so the company works so that people don't have to, is again a very big task. Let's see what we can learn. Well, in fact, before we get to the learning, I just want to tell you a little bit more about my story. I know just by, let me take a quick look here. If I take a look at the attendee list, I know out of the, 17 countries, represented. I know I've spoken in 14 of those countries. So I know there's been a pretty good chance that I've met some of you. For those who I haven't met a little bit more of my background, I've always been a salesman, always will be. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. Action Coach, which is the company you probably have come aware of us from in this example, you won't know me through our restaurants or business, any of the other the menswear businesses and stuff. You'll know me through Action Coach. Action Coach now are more than 1,000 offices in 50 countries, actually 51 countries now. And I sit down and I look at it, well, how does that project or how does that build me to be your speaker today? Well, very simply put, I've been teaching business now for 20 years and all the different subjects, but as much as I love seeing people succeed, I also like having my own lifestyle. In 2009, I decided to get away from live seminars, although I am doing a few of those this year. I know I have one in Canada. I know the one in England is coming up in a few weeks' time, in Australia in just a couple of weeks. But, I don't do anywhere near as many as I used to do, where like in 2009, as I give you the example here, the reason I decided to teach you via webinar is because when I was carjacked and shot at, after spending most of my year on the road, I decided this is just not okay. There's got to be a better way. And hence, here we are today, where I get to teach you from my own comfortable place, which today just happens to be my home. Sometimes it's in hotels, sometimes it's in my office, but you know, I get to be where I want to be, you get to be where you want to be, and we have a great thing. But that being said, it's still a seminar, it's still an event. I still want you to take great notes. So I want you to have a notepad and pen ready. I want to make sure that you're really focused on what it is that can turn this into a success for you. I want to make sure that you have the notes that allow you to take action on the things that we teach today. So the ultimate aim of owning your own business is to have something that works and something that makes money without you being there. If you've got to be there, you know you've built just a job for yourself. And yes, it's a fancy job, and yes, it may be a high-paying job. But the reality is, if it's you that has to be there every single day, what you've created is a job. A business that works so that you can take time off and play golf or go on vacation or hang out with your kids, that business that works is entirely different to having a job that makes you money. And that's really what we're aiming to focus in on today and how we're aiming to teach you. So, 2 levels to systems, but first, the definition. Now, I borrowed this off someone that wrote it many years ago, and I've never seen the actual author. It's just I quote it as anonymous. System stands for save yourself time, energy, and money. And that's really what we're here to examine. How do you work less? How do you do less hours and yet get better results? How do you save time and energy and yet see the money side of things growing very well for your business? Well, it really comes down to building great systems in your company, and be they the systems that you start out with or be they the systems that you end up with when your business is far more complex. Either way, it's what we need to do. So let's take a look at how we at Action Coach build a business, and where does systems fit within that? How does leverage, or how does the systemization of your company fit within that? So the basic business mastery level, when we sit down and look at business mastery, what we're saying is the very basics of the company, building a commercial enterprise that actually can deliver on its product or service with some level of consistency. Many companies start up and they think, oh, look, if I just hang out a shingle, we'll be fine. The reality is that's not taking care of the mastery area, making sure that you have business coming in. If you're the rainmaker in the business, then be the rainmaker. Don't try and be something else. Excuse me while I grab a sip of water. I'm speaking so fast today, I need to make sure I keep having a drink every now and again. So mastery is level 1 of this whole thing, and we need a basic fundamental understanding of mastery of systemization in the mastery level. Then we go to niche, which is our marketing, and then we hit leverage, and the key to leverage is systems. So our systemization at this point of leverage is vital and very much something we need to look at. Why do we do it before team building, and why do we do it after marketing? Well, it has to come after marketing because systemization costs money, so we need to make sure we've got money flowing into the business in order to afford the systemization. Why is it ahead of team building? Well, very simply, what's the use in training a team in how to use current systems when you know you're going to adapt, change, develop those systems into some other form so that those new systems are going to be there? And that's really the balancing act of building a business through this. You go fast in the beginning and then gradually you have to slow it down a little because you've got a much bigger monster to be able to handle and be able to grow. So if we look at it from a very simple perspective, in other words, my definition of a business, we can see how that applies. We'll get to more of that in a moment. But what I want to do is say, what are the 4 areas of mastery? What are the 4 areas of very basic systemization when it comes to building a business? The basic areas of systemization are 4. Number 1 is destination mastery. If you don't know your goals, if you don't know your dreams, if you don't know what it is you're going for, it's very hard for your business to actually achieve that. So you've got to be very clear on the destination, the goals, the dreams, the where is this going in order to be able to achieve it for your customer or for the client, the person that's buying this particular property. So then you take it to the next phase and say, okay, we've got money coming in and money going out. How do we master that? What are the reports that we need? Where is it that we need to go and have some sort of refrigerator? Where is it that we've got to have gas? How does that work? Is it highly effective? Is it? And there's so many aspects of that, but very simply put, if you can't tell me your profit and loss, your basic cash flow by the end of the week, then there's a serious problem with your business. We need to know those things before we even worry about the mastery of major money at this point in time. Point number 3 is about time mastery. This is all about how is it that you, as a business person, manage your time. How do you, as a business person, get the best usage out of your employees, making sure that the productivity is its highest level? That is something that, and in reality, it's the sort of thing where you need to sit with your business coach and actually discuss what are the methodologies to make that happen. Rather than sit here and spend hours on it today, go and find out from your action coach. If you don't have an action coach, you need to find one in your local area. But the very simple put, a business coach or an action coach will help you find things that you just can't see. So we've got to get our time mastery down. Then we want to move from consistency of delivery, a lack of consistency, the chaos, etc., into a very high-level consistency answer. So that as we build delivery into our business, the service or the product is consistently delivered so that our customers can feel strong with us. Now, my definition of a business adds to all of this, a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. If you had to be there, it's of no enterprise. This is one of the interesting aspects of building a great business, is because I got a great business, so how often do you work? I said, I work every single day. That is not what we're aiming for in this example. What we're aiming for in this example is building a business that works without you, and that's why we're working with younger people on this call, because if we sit down and start saying this to someone who's been in business 20, 30 years, they say, well, it's not possible. Well, I know given your current mindset it's not possible, but overall, guess what? It is very possible. So we need to keep an eye on that as news people to make sure that we do keep the business growing and keep sustaining the business, so to speak. So what are the 9 steps to systemization and how do they work? How do these 9 steps actually fold together? What is the starting point of all of it and where does it end? Now, a lot of the time when I sit down and ask that question, people throw up things like, well, it's got to start in Texas, it's got to start in Oklahoma, it's got to start in California or Virginia or wherever it is. Funny thing is, it's got to start the same no matter where we are. Wherever you are, the system has to be the same. So, step 1 of the 9 steps to systemization is about the vision. The mission is second, third is the culture, and as we go down the list, what we start to see is some words that we're used to with Action Coach, that you're used to with your coach, but we've got to actually get them going to the next really high level of this. Now, let me go back 1 step. At the mastery level, we're still going to put systems in place. Yes, mastery, still basic systems. But on the flip side of that, when we get to the leverage, once the marketing is really working well, now we start building really great leverage systems. Now we start building the attention to the business that it deserves. That's the starting point. That's the secondary point, and it works really, really well together. So the first stage of systemization is your vision statement. Now, your vision statement is entirely different to, hey, we're going to be the best accountant, or hey, we're going to be this. It's about your vision. What is your vision for the organization? What is it that you want the organization to do, to feel like, to look like? How do you do that? Well, the vision is a 100-year goal. It's about sitting there and saying, and even if we have no idea how it's going to happen, it's about saying, why don't we go for that? Why don't we actually glue the moon to, why don't we actually grab this vision and actually put it up there and say, this is the moon we're shooting for. This is the stars we're going after. Now, I always say a vision is a 100-year goal, meaning that it's like that North Star scenario. It's I think this is a really important point, that multiple generations and literally tens of thousands of people might be needed to achieve your vision. If that's the case, then that's phenomenal. If you can have a lot of people that want to be involved in it, making your vision come true, it makes it all that much bigger. You know, the business will never, ever be smaller than when you started building an amazing vision. That being said, it's got to include two things: the enrollment of your students, or the enrollment of the people wanting to buy from you, and the environment. And, you know, when you can get the right people enrolled, when you can get them inspired, things change. Now, why is this the first step to systemization? And this is a really important point. What's the use of systematizing a business that has a bunch of people in charge that really have no idea or no care what they're doing? You don't want that to happen, nor do I. So let's make sure that you stay really clear on what is your 100-year goal. What is it that's standing out there way in front of you that says, this would be phenomenal, I could get really good results with this, and then we go after it. So the vision statement is first. Now, if you're struggling with any of these, I would highly suggest you go to ActionCOACH.com and take a look up of all of the missions and visions and stuff so you can get an idea of how much work, energy, and effort has gone into this particular framework and business. So step 2 is the mission system. Excuse me again. When we put it down, it's very simply put that our goal is to take the vision, and being the big stake or being the side or being whatever, take that and then chase yourself through the gaps. Go out there and say, what is the mission statement? How are we going to achieve this vision? And that's really what the mission statement is all about. It's all about making sure that you actually achieve what is the story. How do we actually create this level of perfection? How do we create a person that can understand how to say the same words Miss Piggy says in the exact same way? If you looked at it as one single challenge, you might say, well, it's not possible, we'll just go home. If, however, you looked at it as multiple chances, multiple opportunities to achieve that mission statement, hey presto, I'm sure you'd find pretty 100 of them. Vision first, mission second. The mission is all about how is the vision important to us? How is it actually raking results for the person that might take that document? So then we take a look at if let's say we get down to this and we say, all right, how does the leverage actually work? How do we actually get this to play up in our business? Well, the mission statement leads us down the path of a culture statement. What is a culture statement? Well, essentially the culture statement is like the rules of the game. This is the methodology via which we will accept your working in this organization. If you attempt to move forward, move ahead, we will have plenty of room for you and inside our culture statement. So we take a look at the culture statement of our organization that we're discussing here today, ActionCOACH. You can take a look at it too. You can jump online, ActionCOACH.com. You'll see it in the About Us section. It'll always be about your rules. Very much. Now, not only is it about one set of rules, there's multiple sets of rules that come into the culture statement. So let's take a look. The 4 main areas that we try and cover in a culture statement is what's important to the owner, what's important to the business itself, what's important to the team, and what's important to the scoreboard. Once you know the answer to those few questions, then you can come on. In fact, I'll make a deal with you. I know your parents haven't yet for many of you, and I know your partner hasn't yet for many of you. This is something that we look to build all the day, every day. Building amazing goals is something that I love reviewing. So if you put them on my Facebook, I will definitely review your goals for you. Your culture statement, if you're stuck there, go and take a look at ActionCOACH.com. Take a look at our 14 points of culture. You don't have to have 14. You don't have to have 12. You can have 3. You can have 5. You can have 7, 8. Whatever number it is that you want, you can have that many. That's just what we have, our 14 points of culture. When it comes to the SMART goals, if you want to put them on Facebook or send them to me as a message on Facebook, which is facebook.com/Brad Lee Sugars, please feel free to do so. Send it through. If you send it through to me direct on Facebook, I'll take a look at it. If you email it through to someone else on the team, they'll take a look at it. I think that understanding these caps is very important to creating an amazing image. So SMART goals. Now, hopefully you've already come across SMART goals at some stage. Hopefully you've already understood what they are, and therefore today won't be that hard. So in building a set of SMART goals, what is it that our aim is to do? Well, our aim is a pretty simple one. Our aim in SMART goal setting is to set a goal big enough that it's a stretch, but small enough so we can get there. Maybe we have to do it by a very simple methodology called raising hands. Maybe you have to do it by drawing straws. Whatever you have to do, though, start people moving down the road of SMART goals. Now, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? Well, that's different again for every single business. If you take a look at some businesses, SMART goals are very easy. Others of them, the SMART goals are very difficult, but we still have to deal with them. So, for example, if you sit down and say, okay, if my business was finished, what would it look like? And that's not to say, okay, it's completely done, as in every single thing, the wrong people living there all that. But what it's to say is, if you had a great party and you could pick the #1 band, what would the band be for you? See, that's where SMART goals comes into it. You've got to get so clear, not just on what you don't want, but very clear on what you do want. When I look at SMART goal setting, the first one, S, is very important to me. If you haven't started with your 5-year goals and worked backwards, it may even be your 10-year goals or 20-year goals and work backwards, you're going to struggle. There's no two ways about it. Growing a business is not complex, but it's also not easy. Writing systems is not complex, but it's also not easy. We need to take our SMART goals and make sure that we're getting a very good response from it. So that brings me to this interesting point. And when we sit down and say, well, okay, at the mastery level, our goals are very, very basic. When we get to the leverage level, our goals need to be a lot more complex with a lot more thinking. You know, it's troublesome sometimes to see a business understand this, but the bigger the business gets, the better your systems and financial management need to be. If you don't have great systems and great financial management as your business gets bigger, then obviously it's going to struggle because it's taking 2-3 times the level of productivity it should for people to get a certain job done. SMART goals is about removing that and making sure that that's not a part of your day-to-day reality. Make sure everyone gets that one there. So putting goals into place, let's go back and reiterate everything while some of you take notes on the one that I just put back up there. If we go back and say, okay, we take a look at it and building systems into a business, and in essence, when people look at this, most of them jump to step 8 straight away, building the how-tos of the system. I always say to people, well, what's the use of building how-tos if you don't know where to and why to? You know, the where to being the vision of the company. It's also partially why, the roadmap of the company being the mission, the why to and the where to. Very important aspects of it, knowing where you're going. The culture is definitely a why question. You know, when people understand why they're doing something, the how-to is very, very easy. The how-to is very, very simple. But the majority of times when I look at this, people go straight to the how-to and they forget the why-to. They forget the where-to. Knowing where you're going is very important. And that leads us to the SMART goals. You know, once you know the goals of the business, because, I mean, very simply put, how do you write a business plan if you don't have the goals? How do you develop a business plan? How do you develop systems if you don't know what the goals of the company are? To develop a set of systems, and this takes you back to the ISO days, like the ISO 9000 and so on, when people would write systems that basically documented this is how we do stuff, it didn't mean it got any better. It didn't mean it was any good the way you did it. It just meant it was documented the way you did it. What I'm examining here is saying, well, how do we create who we are and where we're going in order to sit down and then say, all right, well, what does our business plan look like and what systems need to be in place to achieve our business plan? Often that's a very important part of what it is we're aiming to achieve. So when it comes to the step 5, so if we jump over the first 4 steps of the vision, the mission, the culture, the SMART goals, and say, okay, we now have SMART goals in place. We know where the company is going. daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, for the next year, and the next 3 and the next 5 years as more guiding principles than goals. If we've got that down on paper, then it's, and I could put business planning within systemization, but I personally believe business planning is an entirely separate section of developing systems for a company. If I look at the systems and say, all right, putting systems in place in a business, is that part of the business planning? No. But planning is kind of, it's like they go hand in hand, but then everything in a business goes hand in hand with business planning. You can put it under any subject. Organization chart, though, is definitely a part of your business planning. If you don't have a good organization chart, and I'm not talking about the people that are there now, I'm talking about the people who will be there when you finish building the business, when the business is getting to a stage where it works so you don't have to. The organization chart is making sure we understand what will it look like when I'm finished, how many positions will there be in the company, and this is all dependent on your goals. It's impossible to write an organization chart until you've decided what your goals are, until you've decided what your vision and mission are. And this is where I struggle with a lot of businesses that don't have clear vision and don't have a clear mission, and yet they think they can write goals for their business. Well, until you have those, you can't write goals. Then with organization chart, until you've got goals, how do you write an organizational chart? How do you determine who you will need, how many people you will need, all of those aspects? So let's take a look in a little bit more detail what it looks like for the organization chart. If you're going to complete the company, where are the positions? Not who are the people, where are the positions? Who's in there? Gerber wrote about this in his book, The E-Myth. Now, I'm not saying the E-Myth is the be-all and end-all. I love what Gerber wrote, but I do disagree with him that systems aren't the only answer. Systems are part of the answer of building a great business. They're not the only answer. So I draw up a chart of the positions in the company when the business is finished. So if I've said, okay, my goal is to create a $10 million a year business, and here's what that looks like, then I can set the goals along the way. Only then can I draw up a decent organizational chart because I understand the type of people that will be needed to create that level of sales, to service that level of sales, to work with that level of sales. Now, when it comes to business planning, if you haven't already got a great plan, please get back with your action coach. If you don't have one, please find one, chat to one. But get back with your action coach and actually discuss our weekend planning sessions where you literally over 2 days will go through all of your planning. And at the end of that, you'll walk out with a written full-on document. They have a great, amazing software program that helps you develop this and helps you come up with what needs to be done and the intellectual property of the coaches. On top of that, building a business plan for companies that are further developed usually we'll take them away for 2 days as a company and actually do a brainstorm on that company and develop the real end-up results. Now, why do I mention that? Real simple. If we don't have that information, how do we actually know what type of organizational chart we'll need? If we don't know where we're going, if we don't know our goals, if we don't know where we're headed, it's hard to decide who do we need on the team. It's Jim Collins wrote it very well in his book, Good to Great, where he talked about good being the enemy of great and saying that, well, hang on a sec, what we see in a lot of companies is that, just because they're performing okay, they don't look for the next step. What we see in a lot of companies is that the organization chart is not built around when the business is finished. It's built around where the business is at right now. So if you build a full-on business plan and you develop an org chart within that, very simply put, you might have your name in 10 or 20 segments of the organization chart because there's no employees to cover off that stuff right at this point in time. Keep that one in mind. Now, when we put our organization chart together, we're not thinking about the people, we're thinking about what are the positions. Now, some of the people you've already got in your company might not fit some of the future positions. They might fit 1 or 2 positions. But the ultimate aim of it is to sit down and say, well, all right, we're building this great business. How do we build this business? Where do we go with building this business? And if we're going to have a team of people that support us growing this business, what does that look like? How many people we need in sales? How many in accounts? How many in And that brings me back to an interesting question around building a business plan. You see, building a business plan is very important, but most business plans fail because they forget one very important aspect, and that is a calendar. When should these things be done? And the same with your org chart. If you put someone down on your org chart and say this position needs to be filled, you need to put a date to that, and you need to plan your business around it, and you need to make sure that the business is growing at the rate the business can sustain based on the caliber of the people and the quality of the people and the caliber and quality of the service and the marketing and all of these different aspects that build it. But an org chart, definitely a fundamental core to building a really strong organization. When you start with the vision and mission of the company, you start with where are we going? Then you look at who are we with our culture statement. Who are the type of people? It's even part of your mission statement. Who are the people that we want to have on this team? Then when you get to the point of, okay, well, what are our short-term goals? How do our short-term goals affect the business? Are the people we're hiring the right people for the short-term goals? And that's looking at that aspect. And then you come across to the organization chart and you say, you know, it seems like at an organization chart level, this company isn't running brilliantly. Listen, let me tell you one very clear thing about organization charts. Too many people believe in too many different rules about how organization or management or participation or leadership should be. The thing is, if it works, keep doing it. If it's not working, stop doing it. Too many people focused on how they should grow their management, how they should grow their leadership, and all the different methodologies, rather than saying, you know what I'm doing is working, let me add to it, not replace what I'm doing. Same goes when you're building the business, the systemization. Don't throw out systems just because you've been on a webinar that taught you about a different methodology of doing systems. Focus on what works, keep that. Focus on what doesn't work, keep adding to that. So from the organization chart, we move across to positional contract. Now, what does that mean? Well, positional contract is kind of like an employment agreement. However, it has some major characteristics that are very important that are left out of employment agreements that are really, they help us with getting business owners to work the business without us. Now, that being said, getting a business to work without you takes time. You've got to build the team. You've got to build the reputation. You've got to build the loyalty of the customers. You've got to build all of these different aspects. Positional contracts fit well within that. If we sit down and take a look at it, and let's say, for example, if someone came to me and said, Brad, I want to systemize a restaurant. I'd say, well, that's fantastic. Let's still go back and look at the vision and the mission, and let's look at the rules of the game, and let's build it, and let's do all of the things that need to be done step by step to build systems into your business. And then I'd sit down and say, well, what are your positional contracts? And most people's answer would be, well, I don't really know. In fact, do this exercise with your employees. Go and sit down and write out a list. Sit with your employee across the desk and say to them, listen, I want you to write out a list of the 10 things that are your most important job. Write down me a list for all of the 10 top things that are your job. Then whilst they're writing the list out, I want you to write what you perceive to be their list of the top 10 things. You'll be amazed at how little of that actually corresponds. Usually it's around 30% as we talk to people across the world. Now, how is that important in positional contracts? Well, one of the key performance factors of any organization is how well the people get along. If people get along well, generally they'll do a very good job. If people hate each other, don't get along in your organization, generally they won't do a good job. In fact, often it's a lousy job. What I'm saying with positional contracts is we can remove all of that. We can remove all of the bad relationships. We can remove all of the people that don't care about the others in the company. What we can do by putting positional contracts in place is very clearly stipulate whose job is what. Too often I find people where one of them will come in and say, oh, well, you know, I don't think they did such a bad job, it's okay. Whereas the other person thinks is, I did an awful job and I should hand over to you for management. Positional contracts are very important in helping us know exactly what we want to achieve and where we want to do it. So, in building the org charts, let me see if I've missed any points that we've got here on our list, because I've covered off a fair bit of it. Okay, this is an interesting one. One of the key, well, let's go back and look at 4 different areas. 4 things that provide great productivity out of people that are abiding by the positional contracts, or even those that sneak in, I guess, can get through it. But if we go and stay, let's say we go and stay at let's go and stay somewhere on the Florida coast, and I rent a house, and I go and do that, and I'm renting it from a company, and one of the people says, yep, I'll take care of the money. And then another person calls in and said, oh, I'm here to take care of the money. And then third and final person calls you or actually turns up at the door and says, I'm here to take care of the money. What is your perception of that company? They've had 3 people do one job. Is your perception of them, gee, they're thorough, 3 people tried to do that job? Or is your perception of them the exact opposite of that, saying, well, hang on a second, these people didn't do a great job because, you know, only one of them should have come and seen us, but all 3 of them did. How important are systems to a company? Well, they're of vital importance. That being said, if you're getting systems coming to you, or if you're in an area where you're sort of one of the leaders of your team and systems are coming in your direction, you need to be very clear on how you actually handle that. I've seen too many companies where they've struggled very much because the owner of the business or the manager of the bar or whatever it is couldn't handle a lot of customers coming through. They just couldn't handle that many people. So if you have positional contracts in place and you define the right position, guess what? You can then hire the right type of person for that position. If you find that a particular position needs a high S in the D scaling, and if you haven't been into the DISC or the VAK, please speak to your coach and have them help you out with learning that stuff. But if you've been a high D, the dominant style person, and your style of positional contract just doesn't suit that, you're not going to do a good job, and vice versa. So we've got to make sure that our positions are very clear. Next one, KPIs. Let me just go back one step. KPIs can be recorded as 2 things. Most people call them key performance indicators. I call them key predictive indicators. Why? I want to know the numbers before everyone else knows the numbers. So if I'm looking at a chart and I see that, well, it dropped to 10 points, the next time it's going to drop to 10 points is X date, I'm always ready for that. But key performance indicators in business, though, are a very important aspect of what it is that happens for your team. The level of performance of your employees can often be attributed to how well did you pick and measure and manage their key performance indicators. So let's take a look at some of the major points around KPIs so we get real clarity around what it is that we're doing. You know, this first point here is a real interesting one. Every position in the organization needs to have 6 great key performance indicators, 6 points that were pointed in different directions so that they can see if the boys sneak in or out. 6 different directions. Why? Well, every simple thing in business is about the 6. If you are the secretary in an office, if you are the customer service person in a restaurant, what are the 12 things that we can measure you on? Even down to 6. At the very least, 6 is what we're after. You know, at the most, we're after 12. We want somewhere in that bracket, though. A good 6 or 8 is always a phenomenal number of KPIs for any particular position. So here we are, we hire someone, or we've got someone that exists, and we say we need to put key performance indicators in place. Maybe they'll order bonuses off them. Maybe they'll get a group team bonus by doing a good job. But, you know, very simply, it is a high performance position. Anything with a key performance indicator straight after it is a high performance position. And you need to be very good in order to attract the best of the best to be able to do that. So KPIs, should they be something to focus on? Absolutely. We should always be focused on our key performance indicators. We should always be focused on what it is that turns our employees into massive high performance, and where they end up loving and being accountable for their KPIs, not just theirs, but other people in the organization as well. So then comes systemization from the perspective which most people believe is the start, and that is the how-to manuals. If I was to start systematizing a company, I wouldn't be outside the company at all. If I was to start and develop the systems to a company, I would start with the inside. As you're probably well aware, my business has just been made a suite area, which basically means they've invited us, whatever, they're going to fill it. They're going to fill the whole thing. See, when you look at the how-to part of a systemization, how-tos are often people's first aspect. But how-tos, in my mind, are the 8th step in the process. We don't want to use the how-tos as the first step in the process. That is further down the road. Again, if you don't know where you're going, how you're getting there, and why you're going there, you can't write the how to get there type stuff. So, some important aspects of the how-to system. Let's spend a little bit of time on this. First of all, once you've done your organization chart, start systematizing from the bottom up. Don't systematize from the CEO down, systematize from the bottom up. Usually the people at that level are doing more mundane tasks. Usually they're doing far more routine tasks. Usually at that level, things go a little bit easier for you in building this business or in taking over a particular area. So once we start at the bottom and we say, okay, these 3 areas will go first. Then we go up and say these 3 areas go next under the level 4. And then finally we say, all right, at level 5, what is that going to look like? How's it going to actually work? Well, that brings us on to a very simple set of statements, I guess. Systematize the routine, humanize the exception. It can't be any more blunt than that. Mike Bash, who I learned that statement from, he was the founding vice president of Federal Express. And he said, look, if it's possible, because when they introduced the guarantee, there was a very big difference. But he said very clearly to his employees, if at all possible, let's make it so that that is not the crease. Let's put the crease in front. Why? And he obviously went through all of the detail. If you're going to do a how-to system, don't just think of it making it easier for the employees and yourself. Think of making it easier for the employers and the salespeople that sell to them. That, my friend, is going to be a very big part of the success of how we develop our how-to systems. So why is it the biggest job? Because usually there's so many things. What we try and do is make a list of every single routine task in the company. Now, your employees can definitely help you with this aspect of it. If I sit down and said, okay, I want to have all of these different aspects built into this particular thing, I would need a manual on how to do that. If every time I do something, I want to see a manual. Now, what does that mean? Well, if we go back to the very basics of this, systematize the routine and humanize the exception. And I get you and your employees to make a list of every single routine task in the company. Okay, so we've already done the vision, mission, we've got the direction handle, we know our org chart, we know where people are going to go, we know what size. Now we're sitting down saying, okay, how do we take this to the highest and best use of itself? Well, obviously what we have to do is take that list of all of the routine tasks. And again, your employees might help you with this. Some people might help you, some won't. But once you sit down with that entire list of every single routine task, break it up to daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly roles. Which ones are done daily? Which ones are done quarterly? Which ones are done, once you have that information, then and only then can you really start to build a plan for where we're going to go. Once you know how to systematize a business, everything becomes a lot easier for you. So as you systematize the businesses, make sure that you stay heart-centered. Make sure that you understand that this is a training program and it's not just a lesson program. That being said, if I sit down and I say, all right, how-to systems are one segment of the systemization of a business. How many of you can name another 5 sections? I'm pretty sure I would win that championship, based on the fact that most people, when they sit down and look at how-tos, look at it through their own eyes, not someone else's. If you want someone else to help you decide that, then make sure you have one of the animals to help you decide which way should I go, because that will, ultimately, that's one of the best ways you can take a great picture. Now, going down the right-hand side of this page here, what should systems look like? Of course, they can still be, people talking with people. Of course, the handling systemization can still be done with, the whole punching factor. Great. What I want to face, though, is what is the reality of doing these how-tos if we do them right? Well, building the documents, building the flow charts, building the checklists, videotapes. Videos are a phenomenal part of making sure that we get the greatest result when we actually build these sort of things. When we sit down with videos, obviously, and checklists even. I love checklists for helping systematize. Audio programs to help systematize. What should someone say? How should they say it? Is there a video or an audio of your employees doing that so that the next employee can follow and do it real easy without you having to spend all the time? How-to systems, very important part of building a great business. Finally, leverage systems. If we build great leverage into an organization, what do I mean by great leverage? I mean, let's take one step back. Owners work versus employees work. If I'm building a business and I'm doing employees' work, then I will be doing work that pays me back in an hour, basically. I might leave it sitting there overnight, but basically I cut the hair, I get paid. I cut the hair, I get paid if I'm a hairdresser. I lift the rocks and I get paid if I'm a paving contractor. Everyone has different ways of looking at things. What I'm suggesting to you is that if I'm going to build great systems into a company, I need to build systems that are easy to use, easy to follow, and everyone in the organization wants to use them. Systems that are excitable, systems that actually get people wanting to, get real results with this thing. So let's not mess about with it. Let's be real clear that if my systems are hard to use, people won't use them. Now, there is a slight aside to this. Sometimes people just don't want to use systems ever, and you need to just say, hey, that's part of your job. Get on with it. There's no two ways about it. Ultimately, though, let me just go back one slide. Ultimately, though, if I sit down and take a look at putting videos together, flow charts together, photographs together, audios, computer software programs, documents, I put them all in a place where anyone can access them, then obviously I've done a whole lot better than just creating a voice. I've created a great result for the company. Now, key to systems here, making them easy and use and follow. I think we've touched on that enough. I think we need to move on to the next stage. So where does that bring us? Management systems. Well, very simply put, it's not that long ago. In fact, it might only be 20, 25, 30 years ago, where when someone was promoted to manager, they actually got sent to management training school. They were in management for, a month or 2 months over in some other organization in some other state. And they got the results that showed from. If you're looking at putting in place a management system, you got to look at all the different aspects of management, not just the one aspect where, that's not here. I want to see management that is proactive. I want to see management that meets with their employees. I want to see a management system whereby if you promote someone to manager, they know how to run that team. They know what to do next. They know how to actually build the systems around the people to build the organization. Systems work if you work them. So keep that one in mind as you move forward. How do you do that? Ultimately, what's the goal of developing and writing systems? If every single week I write another system, if every day I write another system, however often it is, the longer I dial another system, the closer I get to having all of my systems work together. the closer I get to not working every single week. If I sit down and say to someone like, okay, I'm on The Voice, so I get this thing and I'm getting great results, my systems need to perform. Every week my systems need to perform. I need to see results, you need to see results, but they need to save me time, money, energy, and effort. If my systems save me time, and just do the math. If you write a system every week and it saves you 15 minutes the next week and every week from there on out, how many weeks do you actually have to write systems before you never ever have to work again? You know, every month saves you an hour. What if you could do more than that? What if you could create the results at that level? Every one of us has it. So where are we aiming to be? At a place where the business works without us. That's where we're aiming to be. Can you do it? I always put up this photo of Nick and Bethany here because here are two people that really have no reason to be superstars, but they are. They just keep kicking goals. If you look at your learnings today and what it is we can put in place, how do you actually use systems, not just to fix a business, but to build it long-term, to build great results long-term in it? How do you actually put systems in place that, you know what key performance indicators you want, and then you create a business that achieves that, not the other way around. What can the business do, and then measure it after that? You know, all of the different lessons of what we can achieve in business. If we sit down and say, okay, what is it that you look for when you first came here today? Can you achieve those? Absolutely you can. How do you get it implemented? Well, very simply, I created a business school to help you implement all of this stuff. And if you give me a minute, by the way, if you haven't typed in your questions, please do so now. I will get to as many of those questions as I possibly can in just a moment. I created a business school for you to train your staff. That business school will not only train your employees, it'll train you as well. Imagine for the next 83 working days, you had a training program that for 10 minutes every morning trained your staff on how to grow the business. And you watched it with them. Imagine not only that, I then had 11 webinars. And by the way, you can get into this program for as little as $97. That's right, $97. If you want the full-on program, which literally if you attended live is more than $26,000 worth of training, it's only $990 because I'm teaching this online. It's not something that we have to go and fly. See, people don't pay me a lot of money to do seminars. I would do the seminars for free. You pay me a lot of money to travel away from my family and cross the world and stay in hotels. By doing it on webinar, it makes life easy. Think of your 11 webinars for you as the business owner. What about the marketing webinar? What would that be worth? Forget just the one. There's 11 of them for every business owner. That's in our next level of program. The whole entire thing, though, just today for you, $990. Your guarantee is very, very simple. 200% guarantee. See, you put it on credit card now, you go through the 11 days of training. If you don't love it, we'll refund your money and you get to keep everything. And very simply, well, that's a 200% guarantee. You have zero risk. Please remember those questions. I want to get to them in just a moment. Oh, I forgot. If you buy into the program in the next 8 to 10 minutes, I forget where I'm at, what am I, 7 minutes to go. If you jump into the program in the next 7 minutes, I will be very, very happy to give you all of this other stuff. My entrepreneurs training, people pay $10,000 a head for that training. The videos of that, they're yours. They're included for you to use, for you to share with any of your staff. My sales training, all the different stuff that we put in here, my marketing stuff. In fact, if you go back there, there's the webinar. So go to the website, bradsugarsprofitmasters.com/webinar offer. Go to that one. All of the other stuff is free. It's yours. It's all there. So much more stuff. If I sit down and tried to list everything that you get, if you bought it all separately, it's over $25,000 worth of material. It's yours, $990. Just sign up. But that's a lifetime. What would you... Think about this for a second. Hang on. All of your staff training, all of your training, for the rest of the time that you run your business for $990. You can't get that anywhere. And a 200% guarantee. All right, to your questions. As soon as, okay, I've got a couple more. I forgot to mention the mentors. I've interviewed all these mentors. They're on there. I interview another one every month. We put it up there every month just for you to learn from. The business school is yours. Go for it. Take a look at it. All the free stuff is yours. It's pretty simple. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, if you join up in the next 5 minutes, I will get one of my coaches to spend an hour with you absolutely free of charge. All right? That's part of it. Here's the deal. All of that, let me get to your questions. Let me punch one. If you haven't typed in a question, it might be a little too late. Let me see what I can come up to. Okay. Okay, the staff training. Okay, staff training on systems. When you put systems in place, you absolutely have to train your staff. You can't just put a system in and hope that it'll work with your staff. You've actually got to train them in how to use the system and make sure that they do it. That's a very important part of everything that comes in place. Don't ever assume that systems can replace great people. Remember what I said in there. You've got to make sure that you've hired great people. It's 80% systems, but 20% of it is people. You can't just run on systems. You know, I know Gerber says and McDonald's tries to look at it, but the reality of it is, yeah, 80% is routine, but 20% is human. And if you don't have great people, the human side of it disappears and the business really struggles. That's not what we're looking to achieve. It's not what we're looking to do for you. So if that's the thing. Brad, systems in an online business. If you're building an online business, systems are still the same. You've still got employees. You've still got customers. You've got to build great systems. It doesn't matter what type of business. Yours will be a little easier because you have an easier place of putting them into practice. I think that's a very important part of what you're doing. Subtitles, no, we won't do that. Okay. Okay, so a question here from Fraser is, how do you change your mindset of your staff so that systems become a reality? And that's down to training. You've got to make sure that you're not just putting systems in place, but you're also training people to use the systems. I think it's very important that systems are there, but it's also very important that you train them in what you're doing. If they've been around a long while, you've got to train them. And I guess one of the biggest challenges I find with businesses that have had employees a long while, if you're going to grow the business, oftentimes some of the employees don't want to go with you on that growth path because they started under a different set of rules or started under a different way of thinking, and therefore when you start changing your thinking, some of them don't want to come with you. And I know that's tough, but if you want to grow the business, you've got to grow the business. Last question. Okay, how do I get systems into place? Well, step by step. Don't try and think of putting them all in place in one go. Think of putting them in place over time, step by step. That's the way to go. Listen, come join me on the Profit Masters program. Get your staff training on this. I will do a lot of the work for you by showing them videos of me that will help educate them for you. You're training at the same time in my business school, and then you've got the whole bonus of all of the other entrepreneurial training that comes with it. Eve, back over to you. I know you've got a few gifts for everybody. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you next time we're on the web. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, Brad, for these great strategies on building profitable systems in a company or business. This is Eve Fabros, and I want to thank you for attending today's webinar. We hope you learned some brand new strategies from Brad that you can start implementing in your business today. And as Brad mentioned, for everyone who attends today's webinar, please look for your 4 free gifts that will be coming to you via email within the next 48 hours. Your gifts of 10 business basic videos, a business health check, and 3 free Action Coaches popular ebooks will be sent to you via Profit Masters webinar membership login. And so, as I was saying, everyone will be emailed their Profit Masters webinar membership login so you can get access to those free gifts. And again, look for this within 48 hours. But if you want to continue a lifetime of learning from Brad, please take advantage of the special webinar offer using the link that I've posted in your chat window, bradsugarsprofitmasters.com/webinar offer. And know that this purchase is 100% guaranteed. We know you'll find any of the Profit Masters memberships an invaluable investment, and as Brad mentioned, it starts at $97, and you can upgrade when you're ready to the other levels. And if you're not completely satisfied, just request a refund within 15 days of your purchase. We will be staying online for a few more minutes, so please feel free to ask any last-minute questions into the chat box, and we will at least take those questions in and get those answered within the next few days. Note that within 24 hours, we will email a replay of today's webinar, so you may rewatch it or share it with your team. Thank you all for your attendance, and make it a great day.